Technology. When it works, it's really, really wonderful. And when it doesn't work, it makes you want to tear your hair out. And as I get older, there's less and less of this to tear out. So we better figure out some problem solving methods so we don't all have to go bald. That'd be great. Say you're really excited, you got your electric violin out, you're ready to play, and you pull it up to your ear and no sound. No sound comes out. It is not an unusual thing. Do not panic. It happens all the time. We're going to talk you through some of the most common reasons that there's no sound coming out of your speakers from your electric violin, and kind of give you some ideas on how to troubleshoot that so that you don't have to freak out and just throw it in a trash can and go home. So the very first thing we're going to do, we're going to ask all the dumb questions first. Is everything plugged in? Is everything turned on? Are the batteries fresh? Those are kind of the dumb questions that we have to ask, because I've been doing this my entire adult life and I have caught myself on every single one of those, like more recently than I would like to admit. It wasn't that long ago that I had plugged in every single thing in my rig except my violin, and you just feel dumb when that happens, but it's a thing. The other thing you want to make sure of is that that instrument is not just plugged in, but it's plugged all the way in. There are certain jacks, like the one on the Realist, that sometimes it will look like it's plugged in, but it's not. See that little metal piece there? You have to push it all the way in until it stops. If it's not all the way in, there's no connection, there's no sound passing. So when I say make sure everything is plugged in, that means signal and power. So signal means that there is electricity that's generated by your instrument, and that electricity has to flow through wires and circuits all the way until it gets to the speakers. So we've got to make sure that there are connections between every single piece in that path before it gets to the speaker. And it's really easy to just forget one. And it's not just signal, it's also power. We have to make sure that everything in that chain that needs power is getting power. Sometimes it means that you forgot to plug it into the strip. Sometimes it means you forgot to plug the strip into the wall. Sometimes it means you forgot to flip the switch on the strip. Just check all kind of the dumb stuff first and make sure we don't have like a real issue. 9 times out of 10, it's just, there was one little thing I forgot to do, because there's a lot to this and it can get a little bit complicated. In a lot of cases, somewhere in your signal path, there's going to be a device that's got an LED on it that shows signal. Is there signal coming to this device? If you have a pedal board that's been pre-wired, there's a bunch of pedals on there. Each one's got a little patch cable between it. There's a power supply going to each pedal. One of the things I'll do if it's not passing signal, I'll just real quick unplug and replug every one of those little connections. It takes about 3 minutes, and it's not unusual for that to just solve the problem. Sometimes during transit, things will get bobbled loose and it was just a loose connection. Some of you may know that in a previous life, I was a computer programmer, and we have algorithms that we use to try to solve problems quickly. For an example, if you said, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100, and I want you to guess that number in the fewest number of guesses possible, I'm going to start in the middle. I'll say, is it below or above 50? That's below 50. Okay. Above or below 25? Below. Okay. Above or below 12? Within 3 guesses, I've already cut the field by 7/8, right? So one of the things that we will do is to start in the middle of a signal chain. If I've kind of checked the easy stuff already, still not passing signal, one of the things I will do is start in the middle of the signal chain and check to see, is it working from there to the end? One of the ways I will do that, if we're going into a PA system and there's a DI in my rig, so I've got instrument, pedal board, DI, and then out to the PA system, I will pull the mic cable out of this DI, just plug a microphone in it and check. Is there signal coming from that point out to the PA? If there's not, then I know the problem is after the DI. It might also be before the DI. That's another problem. We got 2 independent failures here. But at least we can start in the middle of the chain and say, is it working from here to the end? If it is, then I know the problem is before that. If you've got a pedal like this in the middle of your chain that has some indication that it's getting signal, it'll light up and show me that I'm getting signal, I can check and see if signal is flowing all the way to this thing. If it is, then I know the problem must be after that. That's one use for a tuner. You can turn your tuner on and see, is it responding to the notes that I'm plucking or playing on my violin? If it is, then I know that signal is at least getting that far, and I can limit my search to what's after that. Another method is that we can just kind of test the ends of the system. I can take my violin, cable, amp. I'll just bypass all the stuff in the middle, plug the violin into the amp. Am I getting any signal there? If I am, I know the amp is working, I know the cable's working, I know the violin is working. The problem must be somewhere else, and that's going to help us chase that down. Not to tell too many tales on myself, but it wasn't that long ago that I was kind of frustrated. I wasn't getting signal anywhere. I'm chasing around this thing, and I realized that I had turned the volume down on my violin the last time I used it and felt kind of dumb because when I turned it up, everything was working. You check the dumb stuff first. If you're doing this for a living, you're paying most or all of your bills by playing the violin, and it's kind of a big deal if stuff isn't working. Here's some advice. Don't have a single point of failure in your system that you don't have a plan for. I don't generally travel with two instruments, but apart from the instrument, there's not anything in my signal path that if that one thing goes down, it stops the show. If the helix goes down, I have a backup. If one of the pedals goes down, I can either wire around it and just not use that pedal, or I have a backup. If my wireless stops working, I have a cable. There's always a plan for if something in that signal chain goes down, I have a plan. And as always, the thing that works against you more than anything in these situations is time. I try to show up as early as is reasonably possible to a gig, especially if it's a really important one. I will set my stuff up as early as possible and check to make sure it's working as early as possible. If something is broken, I want to know about it sooner rather than later. Then I've got time to think about what am I going to do. I've got time to track down another solution. Give yourself as much time as you possibly can, even if you've done this thousands and thousands and thousands of times like I have. Just give yourself as much time as you can. We're going to do a whole separate video on common sound problems like a ground loop or a bad cable or feedback. But the most common problem of all is just it's not passing any signal. So hopefully this video helped you figure that part out. Now, if you've got signal passing and there's something wrong with that signal, you're going to want to wait around for part 2.